Welcome. 20 years, it's amazing. It's gone by in a snapshot. You look at 150 years of college football. We're going to celebrate from November 6th, 1869, the first college football game. So 20 years is kind of a blink of an eye. But it's been a great run for the Mountain West Conference. We've had 15 different institutions play football under the Mountain West Conference umbrella. We're going to hear from my good friend Steve Hatchell, the National Football Foundation, 70-plus years of operation and recognition of great college football players from that organization. The 20 years takes a little back seat to the fact that we have 7 institutions that have played football for over a century, over 100 years, 6 since the 1890s. So I get asked frequently, what is Mountain West football? Are you concerned about the financial models in college football and what's going to happen and keeping up with the Joneses, so to speak? I think that record speaks for itself. If we've survived for over 130 years, I think we'll survive whatever is on the horizon. College football will be embedded in the Mountain West Conference as long as there is college football. So we've had a great opportunity to work with this configuration of schools. To give you a couple of perspectives, back in 1892 when New Mexico, Utah State, and Wyoming started playing college football, 1892 Ellis Island opened. James Naismith printed his rules for basketball. A year later, Colorado State, San Jose State, in 1893, a little germane to us in Colorado Springs, Catherine Lee Bates wrote America the Beautiful while in Colorado Springs, supposedly about Pikes Peak. So we've got a very rich and exciting future, rich and past tradition and history. I'm going to take a little different tack this year. Instead of going blah, blah, blah about who we played, who we beat, who we won, what ranking, are we the 3rd best, the 6th best, whatever, I'm going to talk about student-athlete welfare. In this current era of student-athlete welfare, that is really the embodiment, the touchstone of what we do in the Mountain West Conference. Without student-athletes, without football players, I wouldn't have a job. Many of you wouldn't have something to cover for the Mountain West Conference. It's because of the student-athletes. And it's very interesting reading the comments from peers, fellow commissioners and others about, all the challenges, the legal challenges in college football today and in college athletics in general. But with our branding campaign, which was kicked off yesterday, again, the cornerstone of everything we do is enriching the lives of student athletes. And I'm going to give you 2 statistics, not right now, but if you'd write these 2 down and use those, would very much appreciate it. But what we have done in the last 3 to 5 years in college athletics, and I'm going to ramble a little bit about some of the things, and if you'd copy these down as well, but we now have rules that allow for the receipt of full financial support up to the cost of attendance. All Mountain West Conference institutions have been engaged in that, some fully, some not as much. Multi-year scholarships, quality standards for competition environments, a national concussion protocol review program, which you have to submit to the NCAA and get approved on an annual basis. In fact, I just got a text this morning from Indianapolis asking each institution to identify who on their campus is that person. A requirement for institutions to make mental health and resources services available. The transfer portal, we've read and heard a lot about that. We're making it very accessible and easy for student athletes, if they're not in the right situation on their current institution, to transfer and have another opportunity. Unlimited nutritional support. Enhanced voice in the governance structure. I'm not sure on this, but I think the Mountain West might have been the first conference to have a student athlete sit in our governance room with the board of directors and our joint council. We just had a meeting in the first part of June and had 2 wonderful student athletes. They've been with us a couple meetings now, and it's very important to hear their voice and their perspective on the things that we ask them to do. Adoption of rules to participate in full-time study abroad programs that don't count against your 5-year clock. You can take a semester off and your clock stops ticking for that semester. So all these wonderful things building towards student-athlete welfare and embodiment get to one overriding goal, and that is simply to graduate students. Many of these kids go on and play professionally in different sports, but our mission, the Mountain West mission, is to graduate students. So we have a couple awards, the Male and Female Scholar Athletes of the Year. This was established in the very first year, 20 years ago. We've had 19 years. We have not announced this year's honorees, but we award a postgraduate scholarship. We have had 7 football players in the 19 years represent the Male Scholar Athlete of the Year. We started a new award in 2010 called the Male and Female Athlete of the Year, and we have had 4 football players. Many of them have gone on to play professionally. Jerry Hughes at TCU, Derek Carr of Fresno State, Rashad Penny of San Diego State, Garrett Grayson of Colorado State. Remember Jimmer Fredette was a Male Athlete of the Year in the Mountain West Conference. These are the 2 statistics, though, that just really impress me and again show what we're trying to accomplish, what we're all about, and what these wonderful scholar athletes are doing. We set a record this spring for the scholar athlete list. To be a scholar athlete, you must have completed at least 2 academic terms, cumulative GPA of 3.5 or better, and participated in varsity competition. We had 92 individuals that had a 4.0. So here's the number on this one. In 20 years, we have had 10,797 scholar athletes with a 3.5 or better. The next award is the Academic All-Conference. Very similar, but you need a 3.0 instead of a 3.5, starters or a significant contributor. And again, we set a record this fall and spring in the Academic All-Conference members, 20-year total, 23,496. And I know I speak on behalf of the Mountain West Board of Directors when I say this is what it's about. We win games, we have great competition, we have people coming to our venue, we have alumni fans, almost 2.3 million living alumni, very interested in the Mountain West Conference, but it's about these athletes and it's about their academic achievements. And that's part of our branding initiative. We're going to tell many and more of these wonderful, wonderful stories. But when you really break it down, college athletics is simply about the student athletes and about an opportunity to earn a tremendous education at a world-class university while also given the opportunity to participate in sport. So that's it, and I was joking on the other things. I'm not going to tell you too much. Bowl announcements tomorrow and TV negotiation is ongoing, but be glad to answer any questions you might
have. Craig, speaking of TV negotiations, do you have a timeline and when do you think this announcements might start coming?
I would say, Mark, it's probably going to be in the fall. So CBS had an exclusive 60-day window which has expired, but we've extended a little bit because we're having good talks, good conversations. ESPN is in the midst of a 45-day exclusive window. We're about halfway through there. Similarly, conversations simultaneously with both. Probably fall.
Obviously, you're in negotiations on it, but how confident are you that the conference is going to end up with more revenue for schools out of the new TV deal, or is that not going to happen? Do you have
very confident, Kelly, that there'll be more revenue. We're going to go shorter, our initiative, and I'm not going to get into the back and forth, but we're not going to go as long as some of the more recent contracts have been extended. I think because the world is changing so much as we're talking today, now this doesn't kick in until July 1, 2020 next year, who knows how we're going to receive, our programming. And then if you think 12 years down the road, 10 years down the road, even 8 years down the road, it could be completely, entirely different. So we're going to keep it a little shorter, is the intent.
How much have kickoff times factored into the discussions with the TV networks?
Very good question, a lot, and it kind of depends, and that's part of the issue. We have a term, you've heard it before, but a conference office is like herding cats, so what's important at institution X is different for institution Y, coupled with the fact that we have 5 Pacific Coast time and 6 Mountain time zones, so that 7:30 in the Pacific time zone isn't maybe as challenging as an 8:30 kickoff. And then you couple in Thursday and Friday games in football specifically, and it gets to be a Rubik's Cube, because we're trying to get people to come to our stadiums and watch. I've heard repeatedly, why would I take the time and effort to go out to the game? It's a little spritzel and the weather, and it's starting to get cool in October, November, so I'll just stay home and watch it on TV. That's the good news. You can stay home and watch it on TV. The bad news is you're not coming to the stadium. And so I bet every meeting that we've had, certainly in the last 5 or so years, have concentrated on what is the perfect time. And then you have the beginning of the season where in late August and early September, it can be 100 degrees at kickoff in particular locations. They say, well, we don't want to play in the afternoon. We want to play at night, but then when the weather turns cold, we'd rather play in the afternoon. We've done all kinds of study. We actually have a group from the Air Force Academy that's helped us with what happens to kick times and attendance and the correlation and such. So we spend an inordinate amount of time. It's really going to be a compromise at the end of the day.
The streaming services continue to expand throughout college football, college athletics. How do you feel like, especially for college football, that's gone for you guys, and do you see that becoming more of the future for football?
It very well could be, and that's another part of this whole conversation, because so many people, it's somewhat generational. You speak to people perhaps my age. I'm a little different. I'm not totally adept in a lot of technological ways, but if it's not on a TV screen in your basement, it doesn't exist. And then you've got 30 and 40-year-olds that might have a couple children and need to go to a soccer match or something during the Saturday, or run to Home Depot and do projects, but want to stay up with the game, and so they're able to follow. And then you have the current students. We have almost I think it's 300,000 students on our campus, which are going to be our ticket holders in a few years, saying, well, I'll go for a half because everybody's there, but they're sitting next to someone, not really talking to them, but communicating via their phone. And so it's part of that whole process of which constituent are we trying to serve. We're trying to serve them all. And so streaming has become much more viable. It's much better. In the old days, it used to buffer and buffer and buffer and buffer, and then you just give up. Well, that's not the case anymore. So I think there will be a component of streaming in our new package.
Craig, I know
Chad, look at you.
I know Air Force and Boise State have committed to doing some replay systems for concussions to try to look at that. I wonder if you guys have looked at mandating that at all, or what you've learned from the experiment Air Force has done with that.
Good question, and we have had some people from Boise State actually come and address our full joint council. And it's something that right now we're leaving on an institutional basis. If your question is, are we going to do anything league-wide? Possibly, not likely real soon. Monitoring through the NCAA. Now you have to submit your protocol to the NCAA. It has to be approved. Like text I referenced this morning, they're asking us to identify on campus who that person is. And so we're very cognizant and aware. You know, there's companies out there with the latest and greatest in terms of helmets and mouth guards and how you can monitor, and, you know, then back to the question of who makes the final decision, the medical doctor, the head coach saying, I need him back in the game. So it's a challenge, but it's something that we spend a lot of time discussing. But as far as a conference-wide program, probably not immediately. Not necessarily. You know, people handle it differently. Kind of a companion to the concussive issue is air quality. You know, we have forest fires in the West, and we had games. We had Nevada at San Jose State. San Jose State was shut down the whole week. So there was not going to be a game, and then campus opened back up, and we were allowed to play the game on Saturday. And then I think Cal Stanford, the big game, was postponed a week or something. The Bay Area had some heavy smoke. We have it in Southern California. We have it throughout Colorado, Nevada, Wyoming, Utah, et cetera. And so those are, again, the student-athlete welfare and the health concerns are top drawer for us.
Do you anticipate the new TV contracts continuing the same arrangements with Boise State and Hawaii?
Yes, at this point. You know, two separate membership agreements. Certainly we negotiate Boise State's home football separately, and that will continue and is continuing. Hawaii is not a participant in our TV package until a certain financial threshold. Optimistically, we'll meet that threshold, so we'll probably need to revisit that with the University of Hawaii.
Craig, with UConn leaving the American Athletic Conference, are there concerns about membership changes potentially in the Mountain West because of that, or yet another maybe round of major realignment coming up in the near future?
First part of the question, Kelly, I have had zero conversation with anybody in the membership of the Mountain West about not being in the Mountain West Conference. Second part, I don't anticipate a seismic shift like we had, was it 6 years, 7 years ago, because of the media rights. And a lot of people, now it's just a lawsuit waiting to happen, but they've assigned their media rights. The members in the Mountain West Conference have not assigned their media rights, but we have the ability to negotiate on their behalf. But because of the financial perspective, you know, people paid tens of millions of dollars to leave particular leagues to join new leagues, and now that revenue has risen even higher. So I just don't see it happening.
Craig, you mentioned the combination between digital and traditional TV.
Mm-hmm.
ESPN does both with its ESPN Plus package. Would it be reasonable to expect some sort of announcement involving that kind of combination?
It could. So right now, contractually, they have first rights of negotiation. CBS is our primary rights holder, and they have a linear package. And ESPN, as you mentioned, now with ESPN Plus, formerly ESPN3, excuse me, has the secondary package. So we've got to negotiate them independently and before we get into what a digital might look like.
Commissioner, can you highlight some of the real successes that you saw with using streaming services, Facebook and the like? What were some of the things that were really most advantageous and most appealing?
Yeah, you know, we, Alyssa's here somewhere. We hired Alyssa Purser to help us on a social media on a daily basis. She's sending out things, and you know, it's kind of hard to quantify those sometimes, and that 300, 600, 900, 4,000 people looked at something or some video, but it's out there, and it's every day. And I learned this from my former boss, Steve Hatchell, who we'll hear from a moment. You know, the National Football Foundation probably does it better than anybody in the industry. Every day they're hitting something, some great happening, an accomplishment or a milestone or historic feat. And it just keeps it in the forefront every day. So it's hard to say whether we were the first on Facebook with the college football game. I was at the game at Utah State, and it was really kind of fun as we were walking around the stadium and people gathering and watching and saying, this is really cool. I mean, here it is, and I'm here. And they showed one shot of a father-son that was really clever, watching the game on their phone with the game live behind them and just having a large time. And and again, it depends on where you're at. I hear from the athletic directors frequently, the people that are buying the suites and the biggest donors to our program aren't digital media people. They're linear TV. Again, if it's not Channel 6, it doesn't exist. Well, that's not true anymore. And so I think we've had good responses, and the greatness of digital is you're able to do more. The Mountain was a very successful network from the standpoint. We were the first conference ever to have a linear network. But because of some constraints with co-ownership and two networks, competing networks, NBC and CBS, it didn't survive. But it was a great thought, a great concept, and it worked very well. And to this day, we have a lot of people saying, that was fabulous that we had all those non-football and men's basketball events covered, and a digital component will give you that opportunity. These 10,000 scholar athletes, 23,000 scholar athletes, they deserve a chance to be publicized and have their games exposed as well. And so that would give us an opportunity more in many other sports.
Hi, Craig. Scott Bemis back here with
Hey, Scott.
CBS and NBC in Fresno. It sounds like there's not going to be a change coming anytime soon, but I'm just curious, how do you feel about the Mountain West and the Group of Five's position when it comes to the college football playoff, and how will you continue to kind of fight for more inclusion? And kind of second part to that, just what would be your ideal scenario for how college football would handle their playoff?
Well, we're getting closer. The ideal situation is a playoff. I testified in Congress in 2009. I've been a playoff guy since I've been in college athletics. I think it's a tremendous opportunity. We all knew this day would come when there's 4 spots. There's 5 autonomous conferences with bowl contracts that somebody's going to be left out, or somebodies are going to be left out. And so now we're in that reality. It's been the same conference or conferences a couple times. It's broken. Let's fix it. So, all I can say is we've begun conversations. It's been publicized. The chair of the CFP presidents, Mark Keenum at Mississippi State, we talked about it in San Jose. We've spoken about it since, and we'll continue to have conversation, but it's a very complex issue because it involves bowls, it involves a change in format. Are people willing to televise those additional games at a price point, et cetera? But putting the cart ahead of the horse, I don't know if the CFP will expand, but it's good business to have those conversations, and we're having them.
Craig, you guys, the league's been allotted 6 contracted bowls for the next bowl cycle. Will you guys get back there, and how important is that to try to minimize the chance that bowl-eligible teams don't miss the postseason? Yeah,
there's probably nothing worse in a 20-year history with the Mountain West to make that dreaded phone call and tell an AD and a coach that there's not a bowl spot for them. And it's such a fluid situation that in some years you have 5 and 7 teams playing, and other years you have 6 and 6 staying at home, and it's a terrible phone call. It's a terrible feeling. Those guys work just as hard as the 80-some that are playing in bowl games. So yes, we will have 6, and we won't have to do the dance too much longer, hopefully, of trying to place that 7th or 8th team. But, it's probably been more times than not that we have found homes for all eligible teams. But, again, it's a tough situation to not get everybody placed. Thank you.